Chapter 476. There were no bullets in the gun. When Love found out about this, he cursed out loud and even cursed 18 generations of his ancestors. Love, I'm the leader of our team after all. As the leader, I need to have some dignity. It's not good for you to scold me all the time. Buddy stared at Love. Go to hell with your dignity. Love kicked Buddy. Buddy took half a step back and immediately got into a boxing stance. Before Love could react, he punched Love's chin with an uppercut. Love, I've tolerated you for a long time. Have a taste of my power. Seeing Buddy's betrayal, the middle-aged man quickly got up and followed behind Buddy to teach Love a lesson. The others wanted to help Love, but she suddenly attacked and knocked them out with her palm. Hey, Love, watch my combination boxing. Buddy shook his head and punched Love's face like raindrops. Soon, Love's nose and eyes were swollen. KO. Buddy yelled and knocked Love out with one last punch. Then, like a boxing champion, he raised his arms high and shook his head while yelling, "Oh yeah, oh yeah." While Buddy was gloating, she snatched the gun from him. Buddy looked at she, and his arrogant and smug expression quickly withered. He really didn't load any bullets. She chuckled. This bald Buddy was indeed a clown. Dear lady, my name is Zeus. Thank you for saving me, the middle-aged man said excitedly. I'm the boss of Solomon. My deputy, Jeffrey, usurped my position. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I wouldn't have lived to see tomorrow. Hey, the most useless boss in history. It was already past midnight. Even without her, you would still be alive today, Buddy said seriously. She was speechless when she heard the middle-aged man's words. She didn't expect that she would accidentally save the boss of some gang. It was probably because the boss and henchmen in front of her were too useless, and she had never heard of this sect before. She had always thought that the Solomon sect was just a small local gang playing around. After a long time, she gradually realized that the power of the Solomon sect was terrifying, and the middle-aged man in front of her, Zeus, was the weakest of the several generations of Solomon leaders. At this moment, she was only concerned about that person's safety, so she urged the two of them, bring me to Jeffrey. Jeffrey is ruthless. You'll be courting death if you look for him. Buddy shook his head. Receiving she's threatening gaze, Buddy immediately grinned and said, I think you're right. I'll take you there. Zeus thought for a moment, then said, I know of a small path that leads directly to Jeffrey's lair. Follow me. Half an hour later, outside a manor in the suburbs, according to the two of them, Jeffrey was here. Strange, there's actually no one guarding this place. Could it be a trap? Zeus was surprised. She didn't have much time to think. Without looking back, she directly flipped into the manor. Jeffrey had hired an assassin to assassinate that person. She didn't know where that person was right now, and whether he was in danger. There were about 13 or 14 strong men in full armor in the huge manor, patrolling everywhere. Just as she was thinking of a countermeasure, strange noises suddenly came from the void above. A helicopter appeared directly above the manor. This scene immediately alerted the strong men in the manor who were armed with guns. She looked from afar, only to see a very hot beauty standing on the rope of the helicopter, wearing a black tight suit, with a head of flaxen wavy hair. The rise and fall of her chest was clear. At this moment, the woman climbed the rope and elegantly jumped down from the helicopter. Seeing that woman, she was instantly stunned. She didn't expect that the person she had been waiting for the whole night would finally appear in this way. Chapter 477. 3. She was about to run towards the woman when she suddenly saw several men with long guns disembark from the helicopter behind her. Seeing this, she hurriedly yelled at Buddy and Zeus, run. The moment she brought the two of them to a safe hiding place, she immediately heard a burst of crazy machine gunfire and wails. She hid in the shadows and wiped her sweat. Damn it, if she had reacted a second later, she would have been killed by her own people instead of the killers. About 10 minutes later, there was dead silence outside. Jeffrey and those killers, needless to say, must have been completely wiped out. Buddy and Boss were scared out of their wits. If it wasn't for this woman's sudden reminder, they would have become civs by now. After the gunfire outside ended, she could no longer suppress her excitement. She immediately jumped out and ran towards the woman. Before she could give the other party a bear hug, the next second, a sharp wind from a fist came straight at her face. She abruptly bent back and dodged that terrifying punch. Just as she dodged this blow, an even more violent attack came like a storm, not giving her the slightest chance to breathe. In an instant, the two of them exchanged more than 20 blows. From beginning to end, she had no room to fight back and could only defend and dodge. At this moment, there seemed to be a surprised voice coming from the other side. Then, the attack became even more terrifying than before. Just now, the other party was just testing her, but now, every blow was fatal, and every one of them was a killer move. She was in great pain and was even more overwhelmed. Several times, she wanted to speak, but there was no chance at all. At this time, if she was distracted, the result would be a fatal blow. Finally, after 100 blows, Ningxi's physical strength reached its limit. Her shoulder was grazed by the other party's fist, and she felt a burning pain. In just a moment of distraction, the other party's hand had already grabbed her throat, and in the next second, her neck was about to be broken. At the moment of life and death, Ningxi shouted, "Third senior sister." The other party had already used 30% of her strength, but after hearing Ningxi's voice, she forcibly held back. The woman's suspicious and vigilant voice came from the other side. "Who are you?" Me. It's me. I'm Xiaoxi. Xiaoxi." The woman suddenly withdrew her hand from her neck. Ningxi finally heaved a sigh of relief. She bent over and coughed violently. "Third senior sister, you're too cruel. We haven't seen each other for so long, yet you want my life the moment you see me." The woman stared at Ningxi in bewilderment for a long time. In the end, the cold and numb expression on her face suddenly turned into excitement and ecstasy. She suddenly pounced on Ningxi like a tiger and pressed him against her chest for a while. "Fuck. Xiaoxi. Are you Xiaoxi? You're Xiaoxi. I didn't recognize you at all when you suddenly wore women's clothing. Oh, my Xiaoxi looks so cute in women's clothes. Oh, she's so cute. Give me a hug. Cough, cough, cough. Sis, I'm going to suffocate from your chest. Although this is the dream of many men, I don't want to die yet. Brat, I hate you so much." The beauty pouted and let go of him, then corrected herself. "No, it should be wretched girl. I was just thinking who had the guts to sneak an attack on me from behind. I didn't expect it to be you." Chapter 478. Third senior sister, even if you didn't recognize me, aren't you familiar with my moves just now? Ningxi was speechless. "You're quite familiar with my moves, but I didn't expect you to be from the same sect. There's no one as weak as you," the woman said matter-of-factly. Ningxi looked like she wanted to vomit blood. "Senior sister, can you be more tactful with your words? Stupid girl, I haven't scolded you yet. What the hell are you doing? Although you were weak in the past, you could at least exchange a few moves with me. Now you can't even exchange a single move with me. Your body is weak and your steps are weak. One look and you can tell that you haven't trained at all this year. If master finds out, he'll break your legs." Feng Xiaoxiao scolded her. Ningxi touched her nose. "I'm so busy, I don't have the time." At this moment, one of Feng Xiaoxiao's tall and handsome companions walked over and stared at Ningxi with interest. "Hey, Xiaoxiao, who's this little white rabbit?" Feng Xiaoxiao kicked him. "Get lost. You're the little white rabbit. This is my junior sister. If you dare to have any bad ideas, I'll break your third leg." The man covered his crotch and ran away quickly. Feng Xiaoxiao gave those people a warning look and started chatting with Ningxi intimately. "How is it? Is it fun being a star?" "It's fun. If third senior sister is interested, you can come and play a small role next time." Ningxi smiled lightly. Feng Xiaoxiao ruffled her hair. "No matter what you do, you can't maintain your interest for more than a few days. One moment you're playing this, the next moment you're playing that. You can't even settle down. When you said you were going to act, I thought you were just interested in it and would come back after a few days. Who knew that you'd be gone for more than a year? I'm just afraid that I won't be able to bear to leave when I see senior sister." Ningxi smiled ingratiatingly. Feng Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes and asked suspiciously, Right, I haven't asked you yet. Why are you here? Ningxi sighed. It's a long story. I was waiting for you at your home, but someone came to your home to assassinate you. I was worried that you would be in danger, so after I killed those killers, I followed a group of minions all the way here. I finally saw you, but I was almost killed by you. Feng Xiaoxiao immediately gave her a loving hug, patting her head as she asked, Is there something urgent that you need me for? Ningxi pulled Feng Xiaoxiao to a secluded corner. Third senior sister, I do have something to ask of you. I need your help with a small matter. What kind of help? I will definitely help you. Senior sister, can you help me investigate someone? Investigate? That's easy. No matter who it is, I'll help you dig up all 18 generations of their ancestors. Satan. Who did you say? I say, I want to ask you to help me investigate Satan. I refuse. Feng Xiaoxiao, who had been so confident just a moment ago, changed her mind without hesitation. Ningxi shook her hand. Third senior sister, I'm counting on you. You're the only one who can help me. Feng Xiaoxiao's face darkened. Why are you investigating that guy? What use do I have? Ningxi continued to shake her hand. Feng Xiaoxiao held her forehead. It's not that I don't want to help you, but I really can't investigate this person. If you really want to know, why don't you ask him yourself? Chapter 479. If I could ask him, would I need your help? Then why don't you ask elder senior brother? Feng Xiaoxiao pushed the blame away. Elder senior brother won't tell me. Third senior sister, I beg you, help me. I know you love me the most. Ningxi clung on to her. Feng Xiaoxiao couldn't take it anymore. Damn, where did you learn this trick? Why did your personality change after dressing up as a girl? No wonder you wouldn't change into a girl's outfit when I asked you to. If the guys in your organization saw this, they'd be like wolves spotting meat. No way, third senior sister, I only treat you like this. Feng Xiaoxiao said helplessly, Fine, I admit defeat. I can help you investigate, but don't get your hopes up. You know how powerful that person's background is. Also, I can investigate, but you have to give me a direction, right? Ningxi thought for a moment and wrote 3 words on her palm with her finger. Feng Xiaoxiao frowned. Lu Tingxiao, the business tycoon in China? Ningxi nodded. Yes, I want to know if Satan has anything to do with him. How did these two get together? Also, what's your relationship with Lu Tingxiao? Feng Xiaoxiao was puzzled. Ningxi tried to change the topic. Nothing. I'm working in an entertainment company under Lu Corporation. He's my boss. That's all. Feng Xiaoxiao narrowed her eyes in disbelief. Just then, a shout came from afar. Xiaoxiao, let's go. Say goodbye to your little bunny, we still have a mission. Feng Xiaoxiao looked regretful. Sorry, dear, I have to go. Ningxi was also reluctant to see her go. Be careful. Oh, right, there's something important. Wait. Feng Xiaoxiao was about to board the plane when she popped her head out again. She took out her phone and snapped a photo of Ningxi. Ha 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 ha. Little junior sister's female outfit. I'm going to show it to my senior brothers. Ningxi was speechless. She was only dressed as a girl. Did she have to be like this? After Feng Xiaoxiao and the others left, team leader Buddy and Solomon's useless boss Zeus finally walked out, trembling with fear. You know that woman? Buddy was horrified. Zeus was also extremely surprised. You actually called her third senior sister. If I'm not mistaken, that woman is an A-rank mercenary on the original Sin board. Since she had achieved her goal, Ningxi was not in the mood to stay any longer. She had enough fun tonight. Ignoring the two of them, he turned around and walked away. Zeus hurriedly chased after him and roared, Boss! Where are you going, boss? Ningxi stumbled and almost fell. Who are you calling boss? You, of course. Huh. Zeus immediately knelt on one knee and said solemnly, You saved me and killed Jeffrey. Solomon respects the strong, and only you are qualified to be the new boss of Solomon. He, the strong are respected. How could you have the nerve to say such a thing? Ningxi yawned. Sorry, I refuse. Then, without caring about how Zeus tried to persuade him, he waved his hand and left, back at the hotel. Ningxi took a shower and lay on the bed. She was obviously exhausted, but she did not feel sleepy at all. Her mind was filled with gunshots and the smell of blood. She even felt a sense of fear, as if she had never left that kind of life. Ningxi rubbed her hair and got up. She looked at the time on her phone. It should be daytime in China. She opened WeChat and found Lou Cabbage. She sent a message, "Boss, I got the endorsement for Noble Perfume." After sending the message, she was about to put down her phone when there was a buzz. There was an instant reply, "Congratulations." Looking at those two words, Ningxi instantly felt like she had returned to the human world. Soon, another message came, "Did you not sleep, or did you wake up early?" Ningxi naturally did not dare to say that she did not sleep the whole night. She replied, "I woke up early. I have to go to the commercial studio to discuss the details with the director Tilda. When will you be back?" Ningxi reported seriously, "If all goes well, the shoot will be finished in 2 days. After that, I have to go shopping, so I will be back in about 3 days. Sister Gigi has something to do at the company, so she will be leaving the day after tomorrow." "Okay, got it. Good luck." After texting Lu Tingxiao for a while, Ningxi finally felt a little sleepy. She seized the opportunity to sleep for a while before starting work. Chapter 480. At a 5-star hotel in Luoyang City. Li Leiling was furious early in the morning. "I don't care. You're my manager. You have to think of a way for me. Otherwise, are you going to let me return to China in embarrassment? I've already told Xue Luo that I got the role." Her manager looked helpless. "Liling, ever since the results came out, I've used all my connections to help you. But, you need to know that Cook is not only the director of this commercial, but is also the art director of Noble. He has the final say in choosing the spokesperson. No matter how many connections you use, it's useless. Why don't you go straight to Cook? He can ask for as much money as he wants." The manager tried to persuade her. "Leiling, don't be rash. Do you think I didn't think of that? The environment overseas is different from China. Those foreigners won't fall for it, especially someone like Cook who treats art as his life. I've asked his assistant about it. Cook is completely infatuated with Ningxi. He's even treating her as his muse. If you want him to change his mind, unless what?" Li Leiling asked. "Unless you have a way to move him better than Ningxi." The manager was telling the truth, but it touched Li Leiling's sore spot. Li Leiling exploded. "If I had a way, why would I need you? Useless. You're so stupid. You can't even do such a small thing. Serves you right to be suppressed by Lin Jiji for the rest of your life." The manager's face turned pale. She thought to herself, "I'm suppressed by Lin Jiji because I'm not capable enough. I've invested so much money and given so many resources to you, but you can't even get a decent award." At this moment, the doorbell suddenly rang. The manager walked over and opened the door. She was surprised to see the person outside. "Miss Ning. Why are you here?" "What? Xue Luo is here." Li Leiling hurriedly got up and walked to the door. She saw the travel-worn Ning Xue standing at the door. She was surprised. "Xue Luo, why are you here? Come in." Ning Xue sat down on the sofa and looked at Li Leiling. She went straight to the point. "I've heard about the Noble endorsement." Li Leiling's face stiffened. "Xue Luo, I'm sorry. You gave me such a good opportunity, but I ruined it." Ning Xue pulled her to sit next to her and comforted her. "Leiling, don't blame yourself. How can you be blamed for this? You didn't want this to happen." Li Leiling looked at Ning Xue Luo and her eyes suddenly lit up. She suggested excitedly, "Xue Luo, why don't you look for Director Cook? You gave up the registration for me, but now things have become like this. You can't let Ningxi take advantage of you. With your strength, you can definitely defeat her." Ning Xueluo's face stiffened. "It's useless to just compete with strength. Ningxi is most used to playing dirty tricks. How can we win against her when we've been raised in a girl's house? It's all my fault. I didn't know that Ningxi also got an audition. Otherwise, I could have warned you earlier. In fact, Ning Xueluo didn't even enter the preliminaries. She only told Li Leiling that she didn't sign up to save face. She could also do her a favor and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Shi Ning Eling S of the Ti Ning Ti, Shi Feng of Leiling Stu Ti Ti. Chapter 481. Li Leiling didn't notice Ning Xueluo's strange behavior at all. She complained, I knew she must have used some dirty tricks. I thought I really lost to her. Xueluo, what should I do now? How can I go back to China? Ning Xueluo thought for a moment and said, Noble has already announced its candidate. It's impossible to reverse the situation, but we can minimize the impact of this matter. The audition happened abroad, so only a few people know about it. As long as we build some connections, they won't tell others about it. After all, we're not the only ones who are embarrassed. They're all more influential than Ningxi, but they're all defeated by her. Li Leiling's expression softened. You're right, so, don't worry. You're on the same side as them. It just so happens that history has just opened a flagship store in Luoyang City. Tomorrow, I'll bring you along to invite them to shop around. I'll give them a few high-class custom-made items and get to know them better. Ning Xueluo's agent said, That's a good idea. History has been very popular in the circle recently. Many female stars are proud to wear clothes designed by history's chief designer, Dai Wei. Li Leiling took Ning Xueluo's arm intimately. Of course. Xueluo has a good eye. She picked the designer at first sight and founded a clothing brand for him. I was just lucky, Ning Xueluo said modestly. It was the 3rd day of Ningxi's arrival in Luo City. The shooting of the Noble commercial was over and she was going back to China the next day. She got 3 million yuan for the endorsement, which was 10 times more than the previous one. It felt great to get rich overnight. She could finally buy as much as she wanted. Ningxi's favorite unknown clothing brand Nishang was bought by someone some time ago, and now it was renamed History. It was said that it was developing very well and was very popular both in the entertainment circle and among the upper-class ladies. This feeling of having a treasure that only he knew about suddenly made him feel a little disappointed. However, he was more than happy. The development of this brand would only get better and better in the future. Naturally, it would create more classic works. Hister had opened a branch in Luo City recently, and there were many styles that weren't available in China. Ningxi was going to shop there. As soon as she entered the shop, Ningxi's eyes lit up. Sure enough, there were many styles that she hadn't seen in China, and almost every one of them made her want to buy them. The only thing she regretted was that the price of clothes had also gone up. Now, to buy a piece of clothing from this brand, it would cost at least 10 times more than before. Miss, is there anything you like? You can try. You'll only know the effect of the clothes after you put them on, the shop assistant said politely. Let me take a look first. They're all quite nice. I'm a little dazzled by the selection. The shop assistant chuckled and asked, Miss, are you Chinese? Yes. Although our brand is also very popular overseas, clothes designed by Chinese people are more charming when worn by Chinese people. Miss, you have a good foundation, and your temperament is very ancient. Our clothes should be very suitable for you. I've always been a loyal fan of this brand. I've been a fan of it since before it became history. Chapter 482. Ningxi chose 10 sets of clothes in one go. After trying them on, she couldn't bear to part with them. In the end, he waved his pen and bought all of them. Sure enough, the best way to deal with OCD was to have money. She bought them all and didn't need to choose anymore. There was a dress with flowers, birds, fish, and insects as the theme. It was Ningxi's favorite, so she asked the shopping guide to pack her own clothes and put it on. The shopping guide smiled at this big customer. Thank you for your patronage. Please come again. Just as Ningxi was about to go out with her bags, she bumped into a large group of female stars led by Li Leiling. The woman next to Li Leiling in a light green dress was actually Ning Xueluo. She didn't see Ning Xueluo at the Noble audition that day. Why was she in Luo City? All of a sudden, all the shop assistants and store managers in the shop went up to Ning Shui and bowed respectfully in her direction. Young mistress, I'm here to help you. You're here. Ning Shi frowned. Miss Ning. Ning Shi was about to go out and was standing at the door, so they all saw her as soon as they came in. Li Leiling glanced at the bags in Ning Shi's hands and said with a faint smile, I didn't know that you like history too. Ning Shualuo walked up to Ning Shi gracefully. Ning Shi, I didn't expect you to come. Why didn't you tell me in advance? I could have asked the staff to give you a discount. Ning Shi frowned. Ning Shualuo was the one who bought Nichang? As far as she knew, Ning Shualuo's favorite style of clothing was European and American. She had always looked down on clothes with Chinese characteristics like Nichang. She felt that it was too tacky. Why would she suddenly invest in Nichang? Ning Shi replied casually and left the store. After Ning Shi left, Li Leiling snorted disdainfully. Even if she wears a royal robe, she still looks like a country bumpkin. What do you mean? A female star asked. Li Leiling raised her eyebrows. Don't you know? Ning Shi is like Fang Xiaowen. She also grew up in the countryside. She used to herd cattle, sheep, chickens, and ducks. All the female stars were shocked when they heard this. No way. Is Director Cook crazy? Getting someone like that to endorse the prestigious noble brand. If the buyer knows that the spokesperson is a village girl, who would still buy their products? Hehe, I don't think Cook has gone mad. He has been bewitched by someone's charm technique. Ning Shualuo played the peacemaker. Alright, we're here to buy clothes today. Let's not talk about work. Oh right, Shualuo. Can we really get the designer to design a dress for each of us? A small celebrity asked excitedly. Li Leiling immediately said proudly, of course, Shualuo is the boss of history, it's just a matter of a word. Most of the people present were famous people in the industry. No matter how popular his toy was, it was just the icing on the cake. Ning Shualuo said, it's history's honor that all of you beauties are willing to wear history's clothes. I have to thank you for helping me save on advertising fees. As soon as she said that, the female stars' expressions became even better. One of them, who had a higher status, said, Shualuo, you're too polite. It's because your brand is indeed powerful. Chapter 483. After leaving the his toy, Ning Shi walked around the streets, preparing to buy some gifts to bring back. She was really tired from walking, so she bought some food and drinks, then found a bench to sit down and rest for a while. As she was eating, she suddenly felt as if someone's gaze was on her. Ning Shi looked up and saw a beggar with disheveled hair and a dirty face staring straight at her. It really didn't feel good to be stared at while eating. Ning Shi took out a sandwich from the bag of food, took a few steps forward, and handed it to the beggar. The beggar glanced at her, took the sandwich, and wolfed it down. A moment later, Ning Shi felt as if she was being stared at again. She looked up, and it was indeed that beggar. And this time, Ning Shi realized that although he was staring at her, he didn't seem to be staring at the food in her hand. Instead, he was sizing her up with a picky and displeased look. Ning Shi was a little puzzled. Did I offend you? I just gave you something to eat. What's the meaning of looking at me like that? Ning Shi stopped eating and directly got up and walked over. Hey, why do you keep staring at me? I'm not staring at you. To Ning Shi's surprise, the other party actually replied in Mandarin. She didn't expect that this beggar was actually Chinese, so Ning Shi also switched to Mandarin. You're still denying it. You've been staring at me for a long time, and you're still staring at me. The beggar looked her up and down and replied, I'm looking at the clothes you're wearing. Ning Shi raised an eyebrow when she heard that. She looked down at the dress she was wearing and asked, what's wrong with my dress? The beggar didn't even think about it and said, it's ugly. Ning Shi was speechless when she heard that. Even if he had no sense of fashion, he wouldn't find this dress ugly, right? Then why don't you tell me, which part of this dress is ugly? To her surprise, the beggar said, the painting embroidered on your clothes is from Lin Fengmian's flower and bird painting rest. It's a good painting, but the background color shouldn't be such a dark color. The most suitable color is azure. The material shouldn't be silk, but a lighter material. The design of the waist is the biggest mistake. It doesn't mean that the tighter the waist, the better the figure will be. If it can be loosened a little bit, look at the effect, it will definitely be a world of difference. She was stunned. She stared at the beggar who was endlessly commenting on the clothes she was wearing, and a trace of interest flashed across her eyes. To be honest, she followed the beggar's suggestion and re-examined the dress. She felt that what he said made sense. She stopped in her tracks and listened carefully. Go on. The beggar snorted coldly. The important thing is that the dress you're wearing is a half-finished design. You're actually selling such defective clothes. You're deceiving the consumers. She rolled her eyes and looked at the beggar in front of her. How do you know so clearly? The beggar's face was unkempt and his hair was long and messy, so she couldn't see his face clearly. But from his voice, she could roughly tell that he was a young man in his 20s. She then realized that something was wrong. He was young and strong, and didn't look disabled. Why was he begging on the streets of a foreign country? Chapter 484. Hearing Ningxi's question, the beggar's body stiffened. He had been talking non-stop just a moment ago, but now he suddenly became silent and fell back to the ground, avoiding the question. She touched her chin and turned to leave. Hearing the footsteps leaving, the beggar opened his eyes, his gaze still fixed on the clothes she was wearing and the bags with the history logo in her hands. A moment later, the beggar heard the sound of footsteps and stopped in front of him. He casually shook the bowl of change and heard a dong sound in his ear. He opened his eyes and saw a can of beer appear in front of him. The beggar immediately got up and snatched the can of beer. When he looked up, he realized that the girl had returned and bought a dozen cans of beer, which she placed at his feet. What do you mean? The beggar asked suspiciously. Treat me. I have beer, and you have a story. She found a piece of newspaper and sat on the ground. The beggar opened the tab and took a sip of beer. He said in a dull tone, I don't have a story. She smiled. She wasn't in a hurry. After 10 bottles, let's see if you have any more stories. She was a person who never meddled in other people's business, but if it was something that caught her interest, she would definitely get to the bottom of it and get to the bottom of it. In the end, she didn't even need 10 bottles. After only 3 bottles, the beggar was already drunk and talking to himself. She shook the beer in her hand and took the opportunity to ask, now let me ask you again. Why do you know so much about the clothes I'm wearing? You even know that it's a semi-finished product. I know. Of course I know. It's my child. The beggar said intermittently. Huh? Your child? They stole my child. What do you mean? Who stole your child? History stole my nichang. Hey, you know about nichang? Who are you? You said that history stole your nichang. Are you the designer of nichang? But isn't Dai Wei the designer of nichang? She was even more interested and continued to pour beer into his mouth. Come on, drink more. The beggar finished another 2 cans and continued, I'm the designer of nichang, the only designer. She raised an eyebrow. Why should I believe you? Then I can say that I am God. The beggar's face darkened, believe it or not. She rolled her eyes, took out her mobile phone and opened an album, which was full of photos of her in nichang. Well, since you said you are the only designer of nichang, let me test you. These clothes in my album, when did they go on sale and what series they belong to? This should be easy for you, right? The beggar glanced at the clothes in Ningxi's mobile phone album, and his dull eyes suddenly burst into a dazzling light, but soon disappeared like a meteor. He murmured, beautiful. Really beautiful. They have found a suitable master. Hearing this, Ningxi nodded with satisfaction. This guy finally said something nice. After seeing those photos, the beggar finally perked up a little. He clicked on one of them and said excitedly, you even have this style? Chapter 485. This is the first spring clothing released by Nichang Studio. The theme is spring can't be contained. The clothes that the beggar was talking about had a flower as the theme. The handmade flowers on the clothes were vivid and lifelike, as if they would bloom from the clothes in the next second. They were full of vitality, worthy of the name Spring Cannot Be Contained. Of course, I'm a loyal fan of Nichang, Ning, she said proudly. At the same time, she believed what the beggar had said. Just looking at the way he looked at those photos, it was indeed the way a mother would look at her child. If he wasn't a designer who had put his heart and soul into it, he wouldn't have such a look. Sure enough, the beggar began to talk about the release date and theme of each set of clothing, and even the original intention and story behind the design. In the end, he held Ningxi's phone and knelt on the ground, tears streaming down his face. My Nichang, Ningxi squatted beside the beggar and patted his shoulder. Bro, what's going on? It was your design. Why did Dai Wei become the designer in the end? Perhaps because he had been repressed for too long, the man finally began to speak intermittently. Dai Wei is my business partner. He's a classmate I've known since university. We've always been close. I've always treated him as my best brother and the most trustworthy business partner. We started our own business together in university and set up our own studio. I'm better at design, and he's better at operation, so we split the work. I focused on designing, and he was in charge of all the product operations. Because I trusted him, I never asked about the studio situation. Who knew that in the end, he would steal all the design drafts from my computer, run away with all the studio's money, kick me out, and find investors to set up a new brand. Hearing this, Ningxi finally understood. That brand is history? Yes. Have you ever thought of suing him? Sue him? How? I won't engrave the designer's name on the clothes. He's the only person who knows that I'm the designer of Nichang. He's a design major himself, and his style is very similar to mine. He destroyed all the information in his computer, so there's no evidence to prove that I completed those designs. The man looked desperate. Ningxi thought for a moment and then asked, how many of your designs did he steal? The man clutched his chest. His face was filled with pain, and his eyes were bloodshot. All of them. All of my draft. Even semi-finished product. Ningxi tapped her temple with her finger. Then, what about here? What? The man did not understand. Can he steal the design draft in your head? The man was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly and said, are you trying to say that I can make a comeback? Impossible. Impossible. From the moment he betrayed me. From the moment I saw Nichang turn into history with my own eyes. My brain has lost all inspiration. I can no longer be a designer. I know. My life is over. But you still have passion. Do you dare to say that you have no interest in designing? You don't feel anything when you see those beautifully designed clothes. Don't deny it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so agitated when you saw my clothes. You wouldn't be unable to tolerate a single flaw. Ningxi said. Chapter 486. The man shook his head. What's the use of just being passionate? Now, being passionate will only make me suffer more. You're right. Just being passionate is indeed useless. This is a very real problem. You still need something very important, money. Are you kidding me? How can I get money in my current state? Ningxi blinked and patted her chest, saying, I have it. You. The man looked at her suspiciously. Ningxi lifted the man up and patted his shoulder, saying, rise up, young man. Your life has just begun, and your fate is about to change from this second. The man looked at Ningxi as if he was looking at an idiot, and then lay back down. Ningxi put her hands on her hips and widened her eyes. What? You still don't believe me? All right, I'll tell you seriously. I like your design very much. You should know that I'm not lying after seeing those buyers' shows. So, I'm now formally inviting you to cooperate. How about it? Are you interested? The man's back stiffened. Cooperate? With a beggar? Ningxi chuckled. Yeah, just think of it as me being rich and willful. How about it? With such a sucker in front of you, do you want to kill him or not? The man stared blankly at the girl in front of him. Although she was joking, her eyes didn't have the slightest hint of a joke. She was serious. Why? I've already said that I'm your fan. However, this is also a coincidence. It just so happens that I've earned some money recently, and I'm also planning to invest in a business. Then, I met you. However, I have to make one thing clear first. Currently, I don't have a lot of funds. I only have 3 million, and I can invest all of it in you. 3 million. The man murmured, how can 3 million be little? When we first set up the studio, we only had 50,000 as a startup capital, as long as you don't think it's too little. Of course, the most important thing is that you have to pull yourself together and have confidence. I'm an actor, so my main focus will definitely be on my main job. Besides, I'm not a professional in fashion design. So, you're the soul and core of our studio. The location of the studio, staff recruitment, future development plans, will all be decided by you. Ningxi analyzed one by one. I. Listening to Ningxi's plans for the future, the man got up, sat up awkwardly, and said, although I've been immersed in designing most of the time, I'm not completely clueless about the operation of the studio. It may be a bit difficult at first, but I think, if I'm given another chance, I can do it. Ningxi nodded with satisfaction. With your words, I can do it. Are you serious? Just because of me, and of. Ningxi raised her eyebrows, her face full of arrogance and recklessness. You can earn money after you spend it. What's the big deal? Chapter 487. The game character on the cell phone screamed. Game over. The young man in front of her was wearing a white shirt, light blue jeans, and white sneakers. His hair was cut short, revealing his smooth forehead. His skin was very white, and his face was shy and cramped. Previously, he had said that he had graduated from university more than a year ago, but he looked quite young. Coupled with the way he was dressed, he looked so clean that he looked like a college student who had yet to graduate. Ningxi stared at him for a long time, and then stood up with a whoosh. She circled the young man several times, her face full of disbelief. I didn't expect this at all. I thought you were a wretched uncle. I didn't expect you to be such a handsome young man. We don't need to hire a spokesperson for our studio anymore. You can do it yourself. She had picked up a random person from the roadside. She hadn't expected him to be a handsome young man. She was so lucky. That was great. The young man was a little embarrassed and blushed. Boss, what's your name? Hearing the word boss, Ningxi couldn't help laughing. Don't call me boss. We are equal partners. My name is Ningxi. You can call me Xiaoxi. My name is Gong Shangzi. Boss, I still want to call you boss. You never know what your appearance means to me. If it weren't for you, I would be a walking corpse. Well, okay, whatever you want. Ningxi didn't care about these trivial things, so she let him be. However, it felt good to be called boss for the first time. After all, it meant that she had started to take the first step to the peak of her life. By the way, are you going to open your studio in China or abroad? Ningxi asked. In China. We have just started, so it's not suitable for us to open our studio in China, Gongshangzi answered. Ningxi nodded. Okay, then come back to China with me tomorrow. Gongshangzi, okay. After a pause, Gongshangzi asked, Boss, what's the name of our studio? Ningxi scratched her head. I'm not good at naming. Do you have any good ideas? Boss, you name it. I hope you can name it, no matter what it is. Gongshangzi looked sincere. Ningxi blinked her eyes. Why did she have the déjà vu of having a loyal dog? I'll do it. Let me think. Because of Gongshangzi's insistence, Ningxi could only pace around the house a few times, thinking hard. How is Ziyiling? The rule of law, the spirit of spiritual energy. It was taken from Liu Yushi's epigraph of My Shack. It's not the height of the mountain that matters. It's not about the depth of the water, it's about the spirit if there's a dragon. It's not about the height of the mountain. The water was not about its depth. With a dragon, there would be spiritual energy. The meaning is that you are the true dragon that I invited, the treasure of our house, so you will definitely be able to defeat that little mud snake. When Gong Shangze heard Ningxi's words, his eyes instantly reddened. Boss, thank you. Thank you for the name. Ningxi was anxious and quickly handed him a tissue. Hey, you're a man. Don't cry so easily, okay? I can't stand seeing people cry, especially when the guy in front of him was as good-looking as a girl. Gong Shangze said with a serious face, Boss, I won't let you down. Even if I have to squeeze myself dry, I will definitely make the brand Zi Ling famous. Ningxi coughed lightly. Ahem, don't squeeze yourself dry. We have to take the road of sustainable development. Yes, boss. Good boy. Just as they finished chatting, Ningxi's phone rang. It was her boss, Lu Tingxiao. Hello, Mr. Boss Well, is the commercial shooting going well? A man's gentle voice came from the phone. Don't worry, everything is going well. Tomorrow afternoon's flight back home. Tomorrow afternoon's flight. It'll be late at night when it arrives. You're alone and Lin Jiji isn't here. I'll pick you up at the airport tomorrow. Ah, no need, I'll call a private car. Anne. I have a meeting. I'll hang up first. Be careful on the road. See you tomorrow night. Ningxi was about to say that she wasn't alone and didn't need to worry, but Lu Tingxiao had already hung up, so she could only give up. Chapter 488. The next day, Ningxi brought Gong Shangze and embarked on a journey back home. On the plane, Gong Shangze stared blankly out of the window. I thought, I would never be able to go back in this lifetime. Ningxi supported her head and shook her legs. Let's go back now. No matter how many designs that guy stole from you, there will be a day when he uses them all up, and what we have is an endless treasure trove. Gong Shangze looked at the girl beside him who was in high spirits, and his pessimism was easily infected. He nodded his head heavily. After that incident, he hated the entire world, hated the injustice of fate, and even hated himself. With such negative emotions, forget about continuing to design, he was already crippled. He never thought that on an ordinary afternoon, he would actually meet such a person, a miracle. Because he met her, he suddenly felt at ease with all the suffering and injustice. His brain, which had been silent for a long time, suddenly became active. Gong Shangze quickly took out his sketchbook and began to quickly draw, recording down his inspiration. Ningxi was surprised. You got inspiration so quickly? I suddenly thought of a theme, Gong Shangze said excitedly. Looking at the big boy's glowing eyes, Ningxi was stunned for a moment, then asked with a smile, what theme? On the plane, Ningxi and Gong Shangze talked about design inspiration and the operation of the studio, and roughly confirmed the blueprint for the future. When the plane reached the country, it was already late at night. It was probably rainy in the imperial capital recently, so the temperature at night was very low. Just as Ningxi walked out of the airport gate, a gust of cold wind blew in her face, causing her to sneeze. Seeing this, Gong Shangze, who was beside her, hurriedly took off his jacket and draped it over Ningxi's shoulders. Boss, be careful not to catch a cold. Thank you Ningxi said gratefully. Boss, do you want to call a taxi? It shouldn't be good to wait for a taxi at this time. No need, someone will come to pick you up. Wait for me to make a call, Ningxi said as she took out her phone from her bag. I wonder if the boss has arrived yet. Not far away, in a black Maybach that was slowly driving over. Cheng Feng's hand that was holding the steering wheel was trembling non-stop. Is there a mistake? Originally, he was happily accompanying the boss to the airport to pick up the lady boss, but why was there a strange man beside the lady boss? Wasn't this asking for death? He cautiously glanced at the back seat through the rearview mirror. In the end, he only took half a glance before he didn't dare to continue looking. He quickly looked away. The boss's expression was terrible. Terrifying. However, the boss couldn't be blamed for being so angry. From the afternoon of 3 days ago, the boss had already begun to look forward to the day that the lady boss would return. He even reminded him early on about the time that the lady boss would return. He said that he was afraid that the lady boss wouldn't be used to the in-flight meals, so he asked him to prepare a midnight snack. He was also afraid that the weather in the capital was cold, so he asked him to prepare a blanket in the car. He was meticulous. These few days, as long as he received a call from his boss, he would know that it was about Lady Boss. It was just a few days, but he was so nervous. Those who didn't know better would think that they hadn't seen each other for years. He, a man with a girlfriend, was abused to the point that he didn't want to, but now, Cheng Feng watched helplessly as the man beside the lady boss took off his coat and draped it over the lady boss's shoulders. He widened his eyes in horror and almost vomited 3 liters of blood. He began to seriously consider abandoning the car and running away. Chapter 489. Then. That. Boss. Do we still need to continue forward? Cheng Feng asked cautiously. In the end, it would have been better if he hadn't asked. The moment he asked, the hatred was immediately transferred to him. Lu Tingxiao's gaze shot over like an icy blade. Cheng Feng immediately shut up, no longer asking this kind of stupid question, and continued to drive forward. Shangzi, when you pick up my friend later, don't call me boss, just call me by my name. Ning, she specially reminded Gong Shangzi. After all, being called boss in front of the boss was really too shameful. Okay, I understand. Gong Shangzi obediently replied. Because Ning she was burying her head in her bag to search for her phone, she didn't notice that a black car had quietly stopped beside her. The car door opened, and Cheng Feng was the first to get out. He jogged to open the door of the back seat, and then, a pair of slender legs stepped out. When the man got out of the car, the surrounding air seemed to become even colder. Gong Shangzi looked at the man with a frosty expression and instinctively sensed the danger signal. Out of the mentality of protecting his master, he subconsciously brought Ning Shi, who was still unaware, to his side. However, this action of his caused the man's aura to suddenly change, instantly becoming fierce. Gong Shangzi inexplicably felt a chill, and even his palms were sweating. This man. What was going on? Ning Shi finally took out her phone. After turning it on, she found Lu Tingxiao's number and immediately dialed it. In the end, the moment she dialed the number, a familiar ringtone sounded from the other side of her. Ning Shi jumped in shock and reflexively raised her head. In the end, she saw Lu Tingxiao's cold face in front of her. Lu Tingxiao. Ning Shi unconsciously mumbled, then rubbed her eyes hard, thinking that she was seeing things. At this moment, behind Lu Tingxiao, Cheng Feng was trembling with his head buried, with an expression that showed he was resigned to his fate. After confirming that the person in front of her was really Lu Tingxiao, the girl's little face was instantly filled with surprise, and she happily jumped forward. Lord Boss. It's really you. I thought I was seeing things. I was just calling you. Gong Shangzi, who was standing to the side, did not expect Ning Shi to be acquainted with this dangerous person who was clearly not to be trifled with. He could not help but be a little surprised. Old. Xiaoxi, you two know each other? Cheng Feng keenly noticed the word old in the man's words. Old what? Don't tell me she's my wife. The lady boss is only abroad, and she's already secretly in love. A bolt from the blue, something that even Cheng Feng had noticed, Lu Tingxiao had obviously noticed as well. That expression of his instantly became as dark as a dark cloud that threatened to destroy the city. Ning Shi was still oblivious to Lu Tingxiao and Cheng Feng's misunderstandings. She excitedly pulled Gong Shangzi's hand and introduced him. Shangzi, this is my superior's superior's superior, Lu Tingxiao. In short, he's the big boss at the top of my hierarchy. He's my friend and mentor. Lu Tingxiao's expression didn't change in the slightest. Instead, it darkened a little. Although in Ning Shi's introduction, she attached great importance to each of his positions, it was obvious that none of them were what he wanted. Gong Shangzi was a little conflicted. Boss's boss. How should he address him? Hello, Mr. Lu. In the end, Gong Shangzi politely greeted him. Lu Tingxiao forced himself to maintain his gentlemanly demeanor, nodding slightly as a greeting. Chapter 490. Gong Shangzi didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the man in front of him seemed to have a strong hostility towards him. Moreover, from the moment this man appeared, he felt an increasingly terrifying sense of oppression. Ningxi continued to introduce to Lu Tingxiao, "Lord Boss, let me introduce you. This is Gong Shangzi, this is me." At this moment, Ningxi finally realized that Lu Tingxiao's expression wasn't right, but she didn't know what was wrong. She hesitated and continued, "This is a friend I met in Luo City, a very talented designer." What was going on? Not only was Lu Tingxiao's expression strange, but even Cheng Feng's expression seemed strange. Could it be that she said something wrong? Ningxi immediately changed the topic. "Lord Boss, it's so late and yet you still came to pick me up. Sorry for troubling you." "It's no trouble, it's on the way." On the way? How could the airport be on the way?" Ningxi was speechless when she realized that Lu Tingxiao's gaze was on her shoulder. "What now?" Lu Tingxiao reached out and naturally took off her jacket, then took off his own jacket and draped it over her shoulder again. "This one is thicker." "Oh, thank you." Ningxi nodded blankly. Lu Tingxiao glanced at her, but in the end, he held back and didn't ask any more questions. He helped her open the car door. "Get in, it's cold outside." Cheng Feng, who was at the side, opened the door to the front passenger seat and assisted. "Mr. Gong, sit here. There's something in the back seat, you might not be able to sit." "Okay." Gong Shangzi was also a simple-minded person. He didn't think much and directly sat in the front passenger seat. The car started slowly, and for a moment, no one spoke. Lu Tingxiao quietly looked at the young man in the front passenger seat. He looked clean and handsome, and his age seemed to be about the same as Ningxi's. When he saw the two of them standing together just now, although he didn't want to admit it, they were very compatible. If he wanted to know what their relationship was, it was actually just a question, but no matter what, he couldn't ask. He was a nobody. What right did he have to ask about her private affairs? No matter how slow Ningxi was, she could sense that Lu Tingxiao was in a bad mood tonight, so she didn't dare to speak rashly. Thus, there was a frightening silence in the car, and the atmosphere was strange. At this moment, there was only one sentence echoing in the depths of Cheng Feng's heart. "Second young master, come back quickly. I can't bear it alone, achoo." Ningxi sneezed again, probably because of the wind outside. Lu Tingxiao pinched his eyebrows and adjusted his emotions. Finally, he was the first to break the silence. "Cheng Feng, increase the temperature of the air conditioner." After that, he took a blanket and covered Ningxi's legs with it. Then he gave her the supper that he had prepared. Ningxi was a little confused by Lu Tingxiao's series of actions. Boss, you're too well prepared. This humble subject is overwhelmed by your favor. Don't be surprised. You're the hero. You've done well this time." Ningxi took the lunchbox and stole a glance at Lu Tingxiao's expressionless face. "Really? But why do I feel like you're not very happy?" From the moment she saw him, she felt that there was something wrong with him. Lu Tingxiao took a deep breath, trying to control his immature and self-loathing emotions. "I'm not unhappy." "Liar, you're obviously not happy." Ningxi bit her chopsticks and muttered softly. Just as she finished speaking, her peripheral vision inadvertently fell on Gong Shangzi, who was sitting in the front passenger seat. Gong Shangzi. She suddenly thought of a possibility that she had never thought about. "Boss, he couldn't be jealous, right?" Chapter 491. This shouldn't be possible, right? She had already introduced him to a friend she had just met. Well, forget it. Instead of making wild guesses, she might as well test him and find out. Ningxi rolled her eyes and found a topic to talk about. "Boss, guess how I met Shangzi?" As she spoke, Ningxi took the opportunity to sneak a look at Lu Tingxiao's expression. Well, he was jealous. Looking at Lu Tingxiao's darkened face, Ningxi touched her forehead and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In her heart, Lu Tingxiao's image had always been incomparably tall, mighty, domineering, and mature. She had never thought that he would actually be jealous of a beggar. Well, Well, it was her fault. She had forgotten that after Gong Shangzi's transformation, his image was quite attractive to young girls. What's wrong? Lu Tingxiao's expression was very complicated, as if he wanted to know but also didn't want to know. Ningxi held her chin and looked at the devil's expression. The more she looked at him, the cuter he was. She wanted to pounce on him and kiss him. I picked him up on the street. Picked him up? Hearing this answer, Lu Tingxiao was obviously surprised. Yes. Haha, you didn't expect that, did you? Gong Shangzi, who was sitting in the passenger seat, heard their conversation and said with a smile, if it weren't for Xiaoxi, I would still be begging on the streets of Luo City. Hearing this, Lu Tingxiao and Cheng Feng were a little surprised. Especially Cheng Feng, whose mind was full of fantasies about a romantic encounter in a foreign country, sparks of love, and finally going home together. He didn't expect such a magical situation at all. Sure enough, you couldn't use normal human thinking to infer the boss's wife. Seeing that Lu Tingxiao's attention was finally diverted, Ningxi began to explain how she met Gong Shangzi. After the shooting of the TV commercial, I was going to go shopping that day. I was wearing the new clothes I had just bought and was showing off. However, a beggar opposite me said ugly to me. I was so angry. Ningxi told the story vividly and in great detail to Lu Tingxiao. Lu Tingxiao didn't show the slightest impatience. He was attentive the whole time. Like a qualified listener, he gave timely responses and questions, and occasionally guided Gong Shangzi to say a few words. The atmosphere in the car suddenly changed from winter to spring. Cheng Feng heaved a sigh of relief. The crisis had been resolved. The boss's rationality had finally come online. That's what happened. So, Shangzi is not only my new friend, but also my future partner. We've decided to set up a fashion design studio. I'll provide the money, and he'll provide the labor. Hearing this, Lu Tingxiao's tense nerves finally relaxed. No wonder the two returned to the country together. Why do you suddenly want to open a studio? Lu Tingxiao asked. Oh, of course it's for you. Other than acting, she suddenly had other ambitions, and it was all thanks to him. Ningxi thought for a moment and then answered, it's not sudden. I had this plan before. It just so happened that the endorsement fee for the perfume commercial had been issued. What was even more coincidental was that I happened to bump into a designer that I've been a fan of for a long time while I was shopping. This is simply the will of heaven. She felt that her luck was off the chart. Chapter 492. Ningxi looked at Lu Tingxiao with sparkling eyes. Amazing. Mr. Boss, I realized that ever since I met you and Xiaobao, my luck has been good. Everything goes smoothly. You two must be my lucky stars. A small lucky star and a big lucky star. Lu Tingxiao couldn't help laughing. Really? Cheng Feng burst into tears. Lady Boss was mighty. The boss actually laughed. Because Gong Shangzi didn't have a place to stay in the capital, Ningxi found a hotel near Pearl River Imperial View with Lu Tingxiao's company and settled him down. Ningxi stood at the door and waved her hand. Shangzi, I'm leaving. Have a good rest tonight. I'll come to see you tomorrow. I'll take you to buy clothes, bags, cell phones, and whatever else you need. We'll see. Gong Shangzi looked touched. Actually, it doesn't have to be so troublesome. I just need a place to stay. Ningxi immediately pretended to be unhappy. How can I do that? You're mine now. Gong Shangzi's eyes reddened. Thank you, boss. Alas, Gong Shangzi's behavior could easily arouse one's desire to protect him. Ningxi's tone softened. Be a good boy. Go to sleep. Walking out of the hotel, Ningxi sighed with emotion. Mr. Boss, now I know how good it feels to be a boss. It's good to be your employee. Lu Tingxiao murmured subconsciously. What? Ningxi didn't hear him clearly. Nothing. Have you chosen the address of the studio? Lu Tingxiao asked. Ningxi scratched her head. Not yet. It's not a small matter. I have to think about it. Tell me your requirements and budget. I'll list a few suitable addresses for you, Lu Tingxiao said. She felt sorry for him. What? That's not good, is it? Sorry to trouble you. Lu Tingxiao was a busy man. How could she trouble him for such a small matter? Lu Tingxiao glanced at her and said unhurriedly, "It's no trouble at all. You're mine." She coughed and coughed. "Okay, Demon King, you win." The car soon arrived at Pearl River Imperial View. She was about to say goodbye to Lu Tingxiao and get off the car when Lu Tingxiao's phone rang. Lu Tingxiao gestured to Ningxi to wait for a moment and answered the call. I'm still outside. What? When did that happen? All right, I'll be right back." Hearing Lu Tingxiao's tone, Ningxi immediately asked uneasily, "What's wrong?" Lu Tingxiao's expression remained the same. He patted her head and said, "It's fine. Go back and rest." She did not get out of the car. She remained motionless, staring at him fixedly. Lu Tingxiao laughed. "I'm really fine. There's a small problem at the company. I'll go and take a look. I'm not lying to you. Hurry up and go." She still didn't move. Instead, her gaze became even sharper. Did something happen to Xiaobao? Lu Tingxiao looked a little surprised, as if he hadn't expected her to guess it. Seeing Lu Tingxiao's expression, Ningxi knew she was right. In fact, she didn't know why she was so sure, but she just had a hunch. What's wrong with Xiaobao? For a moment, Ningxi's heart was in her throat. Lu Tingxiao comforted her softly, "It's just a small problem. He just has a slight fever. You know, it's normal for children to have a fever. The doctor has already gone there. I'll go back and have a look. It's not a big problem." Although Lu Tingxiao said it casually, Ningxi didn't feel reassured at all. She held her heart, which was beating faster and faster, and had an inexplicable premonition. Chapter 493. Although Lu Tingxiao said it casually, Ningxi was not at ease at all. She covered her chest, which was beating faster and faster, and had an ominous premonition. "Lu Tingxiao, take me with you. I won't embarrass you. I won't go in. I'll wait outside. If there's nothing, I'll come back. Otherwise, even if you let me go back now, I won't be able to fall asleep." Looking at the girl's firm attitude, Lu Tingxiao still didn't give in. It seemed that there was something difficult for him to say. "Can I?" Ningxi took Lu Tingxiao's cuff and shook her head almost imploringly. Lu Tingxiao pinched between his eyebrows and his face gradually became serious. Finally, he looked at her, deliberated for a long time, and finally said, "Well, Ningxi, listen to me. Xiaobao has more than a fever. It may be a little serious. I can take you there, but don't be too excited." As soon as Lu Tingxiao's voice fell, Ningxi's tears fell uncontrollably. "Xiaobao is very serious. What the hell is going on? Why did it become so serious when it was fine? Didn't you say it's just a fever? Why is the fever so serious? You said you didn't lie to me, but you still lied to me. Are you lying to me about something else?" Lu Tingxiao didn't expect Ningxi's tears to fall so suddenly. For a moment, he was completely out of his wits. He told Cheng Feng to drive to the old house immediately, and hurriedly took out a tissue to wipe the girl's tears. He said helplessly, "I didn't dare to take you there because I was afraid that you would be like this. Look, you're already like this before we go there. What will you do when you see Xiaobao later?" "Woo, woo woo woo." Ningxi cried even more fiercely. She couldn't even speak clearly. No one knew what she was saying. Lu Tingxiao's heart was almost broken by her crying, but he didn't know how to coax her. He could only hold her in his arms and caress her back as she cried. "If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have told you." Unexpectedly, Ningxi's reaction was even bigger than he had expected. It was terrible. In front, Cheng Feng, who was driving, was also shocked to the point that it was indescribable. Not only was he shocked that Ningxi, who had a carefree and tomboyish personality, would actually have such a weak side, But he was even more shocked that the boss actually had such a gentle side. Today, he had broken too many records in his understanding of the world. What surprised him the most was the feeling between the two of them. They really seemed like a couple worried about their precious son. It did not feel out of place at all. She was so regretful now. Why didn't she just see Xiaobao in a hurry when she sent Lu Tingxiao to the old house last time? Why didn't she care more about Xiaobao? Why did he not dare to have too much contact with Xiaobao just because he had misgivings about his parents' attitude? Why not be a little more thick-skinned? After crying for a long time, she finally calmed down a little. Lu Tingxiao, don't hide it from me. I want to know. Lu Tingxiao, then promise not to cry. Ningxi, I can't promise. Lu Tingxiao held his forehead. In the end, he could only compromise. He tried to explain in a euphemistic tone, actually, it's an old problem. Since Xiaobao's accident, he will have a relapse every once in a while. The symptom is a high fever. But what's different from a normal fever is that the high fever doesn't stop. No matter what we do, the fever can't be reduced. Chapter 494. Ningxi's face was full of fear. How could this be? Lu Tingxiao hurriedly comforted her. Xiaobao hasn't had an attack for more than half a year since the last time this happened. This time, it might just be a normal fever. Don't be too nervous. Ningxi knew that it was definitely not as simple as a normal fever. Otherwise, Lu Tingxiao's tone wouldn't have been like that just now. Cheng Feng, stop the car. She suddenly shouted at Cheng Feng, who was driving in front of her. Cheng Feng knew that even if he didn't listen to the boss, he must listen to the boss's wife. Thus, he subconsciously stopped the car by the roadside. Miss Ning, what's wrong? She didn't speak. She opened the door of the back seat and got out of the car. Then she walked to the front and opened the door of the driver's seat. You get out and sit in the back. Ah! Cheng Feng was dumbfounded. However, she couldn't wait any longer. She directly grabbed the back of his collar and stuffed him into the back seat. Then she sat in the driver's seat and stepped on the accelerator. With a hum sound of the engine, the car rushed out like an arrow leaving the bow. Cheng Feng didn't react in time. He was so scared that he almost had a heart attack. He quickly grabbed the handrail of the roof and looked at the girl in the driver's seat in horror. Just a second ago, she was a weak and crying bunny. How did she suddenly turn into a cold and solemn racing queen? Can't you give me a little buffer? Lu Tingxiao glanced at his wife, who was racing. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. Forget it, let's race. It's good to let her vent. The car kept overtaking, drifting, and making sharp turns. Cheng Feng was about to vomit. He looked at the boss beside him with a pleading expression, hoping that he could persuade him. Who knew that he would see the doting and indulgent eyes of the boss? A moment later, they arrived at the gate of the old house. The car still maintained a speed of 400 km per hour. Seeing that the car was about to hit the gate, Cheng Feng closed his eyes in agony. The next second, she slammed on the brakes. The car steadily stopped half a meter in front of the gate of the old house. As soon as the car stopped, she immediately turned her head and urged, Lu Tingxiao, go. Okay, wait for me here. Lu Tingxiao got out of the car and quickly walked towards the brightly lit house. In the back seat, Cheng Feng almost climbed out. As soon as he got out, he supported himself against a big tree and vomited. In the living room, all the servants were trembling with fear. Lu Chongshan's face was full of anxiety and Rui's eyes were already swollen from crying. Yang Rui was relieved to see Lu Tingxiao return. She hurried over to him. Tingxiao, you're finally back. Yi quickly. Go and see Xiaobao. Lu Tingxiao walked straight into Xiaobao's room and saw that the little fellow on the bed was as pale as a sheet. His lips were chapped, and his little body was twitching non-stop. He was surrounded by doctors, and everyone's expression was one of panic. Lu Tingxiao's face instantly darkened. Xiao Bao's condition was more serious than he had imagined. Xiao Ti Yi Ting. Yang, Lu Yang said. Yang Rui's gaze was a little evasive. We're not sure either. Xiao Bao hasn't been feeling well since the afternoon. We got the doctor to take a look and he said that it's just a low fever and nothing serious. Who knew that in the middle of the night, his fever would suddenly rise to almost 40 degrees Celsius and his body would start convulsing. It's exactly the same as before. Chapter 495. Have you used medicine? Lu Tingxiao asked. Qin Mufeng, who was cooling Xiao Bao down with alcohol, wiped the sweat off his forehead and straightened up. With a grave expression, he said, yes, just like before, it was effective on the spot, but the temperature rose again very quickly. Xiao Bao's body is too weak, and it's not suitable for such frequent and high-intensity medication. We can't use sedatives anymore either, or we'll suffer the consequences. Looking at her precious grandson, who was trembling and convulsing on the bed, Yang Rui's tears fell like rain. But we can't just watch Xiao Bao continue to have a fever like this. Aren't all of you doctors very good? Why can't you even cure a small cold and fever? Qin Mufeng said with a headache, there are many things that can't be explained by medicine. We've already done countless examinations on Xiao Bao, and there are no other diseases in his body. If there are no diseases, the doctors can't do anything about it. How can Xiao Bao not be sick when he's this sick? It's obviously because your medical skills aren't good enough. Yang Rui obviously couldn't bear to listen to any explanation. Lu Chongshan held his wife's shoulder and said in a low voice, Rui, calm down. How can I calm down when Xiao Bao is like this? You should have listened to me and invited someone to exorcise the evil. These doctors are of no use at all. The more I look at Xiao Bao's condition, the more I think he's possessed, or lost his soul. Yang Rui said agitatedly. Lu Chongshan's expression changed when he heard that, and he angrily rebuked, what do you mean by possessed? What nonsense are you talking about? Xiao Bao is on holiday today, and he didn't go to school or go out. He's been staying at home all this time. What kind of evil could he have encountered? Yang Rui still didn't give up. Then explain to me, what's the reason? I'd rather believe it than not. Lu Chongshan's face darkened, and he couldn't help but remind her, when Xiao Bao's illness flared up the last time, I listened to you and invited some witch to summon his soul. In the end, Xiao Bao's condition worsened, and he almost... You're actually thinking about all that nonsense now. Are you trying to kill Xiao Bao? Then let's invite Master Shen Jing. Do you think Master Shen Jing is a charlatan that you can invite whenever you want? It's not like you don't know that he never interferes in such matters. Then tell me what we should do. While the two elders were arguing, Qin Mufeng pulled Lu Tingxiao to a corner and said in a low voice, actually, I think it's a psychological reason. I'll tell you a secret. There's a reason why your Xiao Bao suddenly became like this. They're just afraid that you'll get angry, so they didn't dare to tell you. Haven't your parents been busy helping you with matchmaking? Today, old madam of the Zhuang clan came to visit you. She brought along her eldest daughter, Zhuang Ku-er. Xiao Bao must have bumped into her by accident. Xiao Bao must have been provoked. Lu Tingxiao's face instantly turned extremely cold. However, the two of them were his closest relatives, and this matter was not directly caused by them. Now that the two of them were so frightened that they could not hold on any longer, and could fall ill at any time, he could not say anything harsh to them. Xiao Bao is more important. Don't worry too much. Ask Ningxi to come and have a try. Qin Mufeng gave his final opinion. Lu Tingxiao pinched the space between his eyebrows and sounded a little irritated. I'm afraid that when she comes, there will be two sick people. Just hearing him talk about it was already unbearable. If she were to really see Xiao Bao like this, how sad would she feel? Chapter 496. Qin Mufeng rubbed his nose at the roar, but there's no better way now. Sigh, actually, it was very difficult for him to suggest this method, it was very difficult for him to say it out loud, and he had gone through an intense mental struggle, okay? As a psychiatrist, in the end, he still had to rely on a layman like Ningxi. It was really embarrassing. Seeing that Xiao Bao's condition was getting worse, Yang Rui was about to faint from crying, and Lu Chongshan was also swaying, almost unable to hold on any longer. Lu Tingxiao cursed under his breath, but in the end, he still dialed Ningxi's number, Xiaoxi. Lu Tingxiao. How is Xiao Bao? Is he all right? Is he all right? Ningxi couldn't wait to ask in one breath. Lu Tingxiao found it difficult to speak. You. Come in. Wait, I'll pick you up outside. After hanging up, Lu Tingxiao immediately walked out the door. Yang Rui saw that Lu Tingxiao was actually walking out, and became anxious. Tingxiao, Xiao Bao is already like this. Where are you going? Lu Tingxiao didn't reply. He strode out without looking back. At the entrance of the courtyard, Ningxi had already gotten out of the car, and was currently standing outside the gate, pacing back and forth, looking into the courtyard from time to time, anxiously. In the next second, she finally saw Lu Tingxiao's figure. Lu. Before Ningxi could speak, Lu Tingxiao opened the courtyard door, and without saying a word, he pulled her hand and walked into the courtyard. Ningxi looked at Lu Tingxiao's tightly clenched hand, and inexplicably knew what was going on inside. Xiao Bao's condition was probably more serious than she had imagined. An unprecedented fear began to seep from the soles of her feet to the bottom of her heart. At this moment, Xiao Bao's room was in chaos. At this moment, footsteps suddenly came from behind. Everyone turned around subconsciously and saw the girl next to Lu Tingxiao holding hands. Lu Chongshan's expression instantly changed. Why did you bring this woman here? Do you think Xiao Bao's condition is not serious enough? To Lu Chongshan, Ningxi was probably an existence even more despicable than the witch. Although Yang Rui's attitude was somewhat displeased, it wasn't as intense as Lu Chongshan's. Right now, she was completely at a loss. Lu Chongshan panted heavily and roared, "Get her out of here right now." Lu Tingxiao squeezed Ningxi's hand and was about to speak, but Ningxi suddenly shook her head at him and broke free from his hand. Contrary to Lu Tingxiao's expectation, Ningxi would collapse on the spot. To his surprise, Ningxi's expression was extremely calm when she saw Xiao Bao lying on the bed. She didn't even care about Lu Chongshan's roar and rebuke. After breaking free from Lu Tingxiao's hand, she walked straight to Xiao Bao's bed. She was clearly a girl who looked soft and weak, but at this moment, her eyes revealed a terrifying coldness that could kill gods and Buddhas. As a result, the doctors and servants who had listened to Lu Chongshan's order to stop Ningxi all unconsciously made way for her. Lu Chongshan was infuriated seeing this. "Hold it right there. What are you trying to do? Did none of you hear what I said? Who allowed you to let her in?" Lu Tingxiao stretched out his arm and blocked his father, who was about to rush forward himself. At this moment, Ningxi had already sat on the edge of Xiao Bao's bed. She first quickly took off her coat that carried the cold air outside, then lifted the thick blanket on Xiao Bao's body, and finally, carefully and gently hugged the little fellow whose skin was boiling hot and body soft. Chapter 497. When he saw this audacious woman ceaselessly disregard his warnings and actually dared to touch little Bao with her filthy hands, Lu Chongshan was simply infuriated to the limit, and he was just about to berate her furiously when he suddenly went silent for some unknown reason. Although little Baozi was already in a daze from the fever, after being hugged by Ningxi, it was as if he subconsciously knew who was hugging him. He immediately used his warm little hands to tightly grip the corner of Ningxi's clothes, and rubbed his burning little face against Ningxi's chest. Ningxi forced herself to calm down. Because of Xiao Bao's subconscious action of getting close to her, her pretense broke down instantly. Because there were too many people at the scene, she managed to hold back, but her eyes were a little red. At this moment, Ningxi didn't care about all the eyes around her at all, whether it was the doctors or the old man and the old lady who were glaring at her. All she could see was the weak and uncomfortable Xiaobao in her arms. Ningxi hugged Xiaobao tighter, leaned over and kissed his forehead, and then kissed his little face. She said in a very gentle voice, "Baby, I'm here. Don't be afraid." That voice seemed to have a special ability to calm people's hearts. Not only Xiaobao, but also the other people at the scene felt that the heat and panic in their hearts were dispelled. Lu Chongshan still stood there blankly, forgetting to be angry for a moment. Xiaobao curled up in Ningxi's arms with great attachment. Although his little body was still trembling, the look on his little face was obviously not as painful as before, as if he had been tortured by a nightmare. Instead, he looked at ease and contented. Ningxi adjusted her posture, stood up, and let Xiaobao's little head rest on her shoulder. Lu Tingxiao helped Ningxi adjust Xiaobao to a comfortable position, then picked up the small blanket on the bed and covered his son with it. Then, Ningxi began to walk around the room. As she walked, she hummed in an extremely soft voice, "Sleep, sleep, my dear baby, mother's hands, gently shake you. Sleep, sleep, my dear baby, mother's arms, always protect you. Sleep, sleep, my dear baby, mother loves you, mother likes you." This woman. She actually dared to claim to be Xiaobao's mother, so shameless. Lu Chongshan should have been furious, but for some reason, when he saw the girl carrying Xiaobao while humming a song to coax him to sleep, the anger in his heart actually didn't erupt. Instead, he had a feeling that he didn't want to disturb them. The other doctors and servants, especially the women, could not help but tear up when they saw the little bun's head resting on the girl's shoulder with a look of love on his face. Sigh, the young master is really pitiful. He didn't have a mother's love since he was young. In fact, at this time, a hug, a kiss, or a gentle lullaby from his mother would be more effective than any elixir, right? They even thought that it would be great if this girl was really the young master's mother. The one with the strangest expression was Yang Rui. She looked at her precious grandson, who was leaning on Ningxi's shoulder and was gradually calming down. In fact, his body was no longer trembling or convulsing. She inexplicably recalled Master Xian Jing's words that day, "Unparalleled fortune, unparalleled fortune." Chapter 498. Ningxi was not a doctor, so she didn't know how to treat him. She was just comforting Xiao Baozi based on her instinct. In addition, there was a trace of telepathy that even she herself found hard to understand. If Xiao Baozi moved a little, groaned, frowned, or breathed at a wrong frequency, she would naturally know what was wrong with him. She would change her posture, ask Lu Tingxiao to cover Xiao Baozi with a blanket, or whisper in Xiao Baozi's ear to tell him that she was always here. Before Ningxi came, little Bun had been lying on the bed restlessly. No matter how many people were taking care of him and surrounding him, he couldn't calm down. Now that he was in Ningxi's arms and his little head was resting on her shoulder, he looked incomparably at ease and comfortable. He even gradually fell into a deep and sweet sleep. The doctors and servants looked at each other and all breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, they were all quiet and didn't dare to make a sound, for fear of waking up the little fellow again. If something really happened to the little prince tonight, all the people in the house would be finished. The most serious thing about Xiao Bao's condition was not the fever, but his emotions made his body extremely weak. He was still in a high state of tension and couldn't sleep, so how could he get better? Ningxi's arrival undoubtedly solved the most critical problem at present. Ningxi had been comforting Xiao Baozi for a long time. Lu Tingxiao noticed that she was moving her arm uncomfortably. How could her arm not be sore after such a long time? Lu Tingxiao made Xiao Bao's small bed and motioned for Ningxi to carry Xiao Bao to the bed to sleep. Ningxi looked at Xiao Bao in her arms and saw that the little fellow's breathing was stable. He was completely asleep, so she slowly walked to the bed, bent down and carefully put Xiao Bao on the bed. Seeing this, Lu Chongshan and Yang Rui finally calmed down. However, just as Ningxi put the little bun on the bed, The little fellow's originally sweet and peaceful little face immediately frowned and his body began to tremble slightly. Seeing that Xiao Bao was about to fall ill again, the two elders were frightened. Before they could calm down, their hearts were in their throats again. She was naturally the first to notice it. She immediately carried Xiao Bao back and coaxed him again. Although she looked a little helpless, she didn't show the slightest impatience. Although Lu Tingxiao was worried about his son, his heart also ached for his wife. He immediately walked over and helped She sit down on the bed. "What's wrong?" Holding Xiao Bao in her arms, She cast a suspicious look at him. The next second, her eyes widened in shock. Lu Tingxiao squatted down and actually helped her take off her shoes. Of course, those who were more surprised than She were the other people standing quietly in the corner of the room and the Demon King's parents. Only Qin Mu touched his nose and looked at Xiao Bao, and said in an indifferent tone. After helping She take off her shoes, Lu Tingxiao gently put her legs on the bed, put two soft pillows behind her, let her lean against the headboard, adjusted her into a comfortable position, and then covered her with the quilt. He looked serious and said in an irrefutable tone, "You sleep for a while. I came here as soon as I got off the plane and haven't had a rest." "Oh." She placed little Bun on her lap and hugged him. Leaning against the soft pillow on her back, she felt much more comfortable. Chapter 499. Oh. She placed little Bun on her lap and leaned against the soft pillow. Indeed, it was much more comfortable. However, she couldn't stand all the heated gazes around her. Lu Tingxiao waved his hand coldly. Everyone immediately recovered from their shock and retreated while trembling with fear. They could only guess in their hearts, what was the background of this woman that eldest young master had brought back? Not only did she coax young master the moment she arrived, she even made young master, who had never been close to women, treat her with such gentleness. Could it be that this woman is our young master's biological mother? One of the young maids had a look of sudden realization. That's not possible, right? Didn't they say that young master's biological mother died a long time ago? Otherwise, which woman would be so heartless as to abandon her own flesh and blood? And it's such an outstanding man like our young master. Perhaps there's something that she can't say. Are the few of you tired of living? How dare you talk about such things? If old master and old madam find out, you'll be chased out. A servant with a higher status berated them. Instantly, everyone fell silent. In the Lu family, the topic of young master's mother had always been a taboo. Inside the room, she was indeed a little tired after the long journey and the fright she had suffered because of little Bun. However, the two big shots, Lu Chongshan and Yang Rui, were still in the room. It was already uncomfortable for her to be lying on the bed while they were standing, not to mention sleeping in front of them. "Dad, Mom, you guys should go rest too. I'll be watching over here," Lu Tingxiao said to the two of them. Lu Chongshan looked at his precious grandson, who was in Ningxi's arms and was completely asleep. He looked extremely conflicted. He frowned and was about to speak when Yang Rui pulled him. "We'll go out first. Tell us immediately if anything happens to little Bun." In the living room, Lu Chongshan looked displeased when he was pulled out. "Why did you pull me?" Yang Rui looked as though she wanted to say something. "Chongshan, don't you think that girl is very special? What's so special about her? She's just good at coaxing people. Otherwise, why would Xiaobao and Tingxiao be so infatuated with her?" What made Lu Chongshan the most frustrated was that he could only watch helplessly as his son and grandson were completely controlled by that woman, and he couldn't do anything about it. Xiaobao was in so much pain before, but he's fine now that she's here. "Do you think coaxing him will work?" Yang Rui showed an expression of disapproval. Lu Chongshan knew that he was biased, but he would never admit it. He said in a muffled voice, "Then why do you think it is?" Yang Rui probed, "Maybe, this girl has a good fate and good fortune, so she can protect our little treasure." Upon hearing this, Lu Chongshan's face darkened. What nonsense are you talking about? How am I talking nonsense? This is what Master Xian Jing said personally. Yang Ruyi blurted out in agitation. What did you say? Why would Master Xian Jing say such a thing? Lu Chongshan immediately questioned with a serious expression. Yang Rui's eyes flickered, and she said helplessly, to tell you the truth, when I went to ask Master Xian Jing to test my horoscope, I also brought this girl's horoscope. Chapter 500. You. Lu Chongshan was enraged. Why did you bring that woman's horoscope over for no reason? Do you want her to marry into the family? Yang Ruyi shrunk her shoulders and said casually, how is that possible? I was just worried that this woman would harm our Tingxiao and Xiaobao, so I wanted to let Master test it, okay? Lu Chongshan was still a little curious. After sulking for a while, he glanced at her and asked, what was the result? Yang Rui's expression was a little agitated. She recalled and said, in the end, we chose so many girls, but none of them were outstanding. Master Xian Jing said that her birth chart was unparalleled luck, bringing prosperity to her husband and family, and having many children would bring many blessing. Even though Lu Chongshan was already mentally prepared, he was still shocked when he heard this. How is that possible? Master Xian Jing really said that himself? Why would I lie to you? These were Master Xian Jing's original words, word for word. Master Xian Jing also said that this girl's horoscope is very compatible with our Tingxiao's. I didn't believe it at first, but I was afraid that you would blame me, so I didn't tell you. It wasn't until Xiaobao's matter today that I thought about it again. All of us tried everything, but it was useless. But as soon as this girl came, our Xiaobao's illness immediately recovered. No matter how much Xiaobao likes this girl, it can't have such a big impact. Yang Ruyi analyzed bit by bit. Lu Chongshan paced back and forth in the living room with a solemn expression. After a while, he finally made a decision and said in a low voice, the horoscope is just a formality. How can it be completely true? Don't mention this again in the future. Besides, it's still unknown whether Xiaobao is well or not. What if he? Fart. How can you curse your own grandson like that? Yang Ruyi immediately scolded her husband in dissatisfaction. I'm just worried about Xiaobao. Lu Chongshan also realized that he had said something wrong and looked embarrassed. Lu Chongshan thought about Yang Rui's words and hesitated for a while. In the end, he stared at his wife seriously and said sternly, the 8 characters are illusory, but a person's character can be reflected in all aspects. Don't forget how Xiaobao became like this 2 years ago. It was because we trusted that kind of person. In fact, Yang Rui also knew that even if Lu Chongshan knew what Master Xian Jing said that day, his attitude might not change much. After hearing this, her face turned slightly pale, and she nodded. I was just saying. Of course, I will be careful. In Xiaobao's room. After Lu Chongshan and Yang Rui left, Ningxi immediately felt sleepy, but because she was worried about Little Bun, she didn't dare to sleep. Lu Tingxiao sat on the edge of the bed and adjusted the quilt for her. Go to sleep. I'm here. I'll wake you up if anything happens. After that, he planted a light kiss on the girl's forehead. Ningxi's eyes suddenly widened. She was so shocked by Lu Tingxiao's action that she lost most of her sleepiness. Are you sure you really want me to sleep? Looking at the girl's widened eyes, a trace of darkness flashed across Lu Tingxiao's deep eyes. Sorry. Although he said sorry, what he did was completely the opposite. The man leaned over and planted another kiss on the corner of her mouth. After a long time, he finally left, and Ningxi was completely awake. You don't dare to move because I'm holding Xiaobao. Ningxi, one day, you will become Xiaobao's mother. Chapter 501. In her dreams, Ningxi's mind was still filled with Lu Tingxiao's words. One day, you will become Xiaobao's mother. Oh, become Xiaobao's mother. If she really was, how good would that be? She really liked Xiaobao. After all, she was still worried about Xiaobao, so he didn't sleep well. Ningxi woke up not long after. The first thing she did was to look at Xiaobao in her arms. Luckily, the little fellow was still sleeping soundly in her arms. His soft fingers subconsciously tugged at the corner of her clothes, and his neck and back were covered in a fine layer of sweat. That's great, it's good to be able to sweat, it's good for heat dissipation. Ningxi immediately touched Xiaobao's forehead. His temperature seemed to have dropped quite a bit. Lu Tingxiao was originally standing in front of the wide floor-to-ceiling window, looking at the gradually brightening sky. When he heard movement on the bed, he immediately walked over. He's awake. Ningxi touched Xiaobao's forehead and urged him softly, Lu Tingxiao, can you check if Xiaobao's fever has dropped a little? I feel like Xiaobao's body isn't as hot as before. Lu Tingxiao nodded and touched his son's forehead with his wide palm. His expression softened slightly. His temperature has dropped. Don't worry, I'll call the doctor in to take a look. Okay. Ningxi nodded repeatedly. Lu Tingxiao went out for a while. When he came back, Qin Mufeng and two other doctors followed behind him. Qin Mufeng attentively handed over the thermometer. Lu Tingxiao took the thermometer and carefully placed it under Xiaobao's armpit. A moment later, the results were out. The thermometer showed 37.8 degrees. Although he still had a slight fever, it was much better than the previous 40 degrees. Moreover, he didn't use any medicine at all to cool his body down. This was really not easy. Following that, the other two doctors gave Xiaobao a detailed examination. After the examination last night, the doctor's complexion had improved a lot. Currently, young master's condition has stabilized, but we still need to continue observing him. At least until tomorrow, after 24 hours. At this moment, Lu Chongshan and Yang Rui heard the news and hurriedly walked in. They hurriedly looked at the thermometer. When they saw that the temperature had dropped, they finally heaved a sigh of relief. However, they still didn't dare to let their guard down. Yes. We still have to continue observing. It's better to be careful. We don't know if the fire will start again. It was also up and down before. Yang Rui's face was full of worry. Lu Chongshan nodded his head in agreement. His nerves that had been stretched taut for an entire night could finally relax a little. He simply didn't dare to imagine what would happen if something really happened to Xiaobao. At this time, Ningxi, who was holding little Bun on the bed, suddenly frowned and exclaimed, "Ah!" For a moment, everyone's gaze landed on her nervously. Yang Rui, what's wrong? What happened to Xiaobao? Lu Chongshan, what happened? The doctors' hearts were in their throats. They hoped that nothing bad would happen to this little devil again. Under everyone's nervous gazes, Ningxi wanted to say something but hesitated. She looked embarrassed, which made everyone even more worried. In the end, only Lu Tingxiao walked over without saying a word. He first rolled up his sleeves slightly, then lifted the quilt and began to massage her legs naturally. He said calmly, "Are your legs numb?" Chapter 502. All the doctors and servants waiting to serve him were speechless. Oh my God! The man in front of them was personally massaging a woman's legs with his sleeves rolled up. Was he really the unreasonable young master they knew, the terrifying CEO of Lu Group, Lu Tingxiao? Since last night, their impression of Lu Tingxiao in their hearts had been refreshed again and again. Even Lu Chongshan and Yang Rui were in complete disbelief. They couldn't believe that the man in front of them was really their son, let alone the others. Previously, they only knew that their son was infatuated with this woman, but they had never seen the details with their own eyes. The shock of seeing it with their own eyes was definitely 1,000 times stronger than hearing it from others and imagining it. The son that they had given birth to was almost unrecognizable to them. Actually, Ningxi herself was even more shocked than the surrounding onlookers. At this moment, Ningxi felt as if thousands of wild beasts were stampeding through her heart. Great Demon King, can you restrain yourself a little? Everyone is here. Helpless, Lu Tingxiao couldn't sense the roars in her heart and the countless gazes hinting at him. He continued to focus on massaging her legs, which were numb and aching because he didn't dare to move for a long time in fear of waking Xiaobao up. As he massaged, Ningxi almost gave up and was already numb to the gazes around her. And, oh, the Great Demon King's skills are really good. It's so comfortable. Are you feeling better? After a while, Lu Tingxiao looked up and asked gently. Ningxi nodded hurriedly. Yes, yes. The way your father looks at me is as if he's looking at Baoji, who can bring disaster to the country and people and confuse the emperor. Only then did Lu Tingxiao cover her with the quilt again. He gently combed her slightly messy hair, still not hiding his love for the girl. At this moment, all the servants in the old mansion had come to a clear conclusion: the woman in front of them was definitely not to be offended. After all, he had a favor to ask now. No matter how angry Lu Chongshan was, he could only bear with it for Xiaobao. He snorted and turned to leave with a face full of anger. Once outside, Lu Chongshan couldn't hold it in anymore and said angrily to Yang Rui, outrageous. Look at him. He's a man, but he's doing this for a woman. He's so humble, and he's even doing this in front of so many people. Does he even remember who he is? As a mother, although Yang Rui was unhappy, from a woman's point of view, Lu Tingxiao's behavior wasn't inappropriate. If you really liked someone, you would naturally be very considerate. As Yang Rui thought about it, she absent-mindedly glanced at Lu Chongshan. She and Lu Chongshan's marriage was well matched, and back then, they were also a talented man and a beautiful woman. However, she clearly knew that this man had only married her because she was the most suitable candidate, and had never truly loved her. The next day, the doctor examined Xiao Bao again at noon and in the evening. In the evening, Xiao Bao's fever subsided, and his condition finally stabilized. After a day and a night of torment, everyone finally heaved a sigh of relief. Since Xiao Bao was fine, Lu Chongshan, who had long since reached the end of his patience, naturally stopped holding back. She walked into Xiaobao's room and said to Ningxi, Miss Ning, sorry to trouble you this time. I'll ask the driver to send you back later. Chapter 503. After Lu Chongshan finished speaking, he instructed the butler beside him, Xing Wu, prepare a generous gift. These words were not only to chase the guest away, but also to completely cut off all ties with the guest and show that they owed each other nothing. This was burning the bridge after crossing the river, throwing it away after using it. Wasn't it too obvious? Ningxi didn't care about Lu Chongshan's attitude towards her at all. However, when she thought about being separated from Little Bun, she felt a bone-deep pain. She subconsciously hugged Little Bun even tighter. He really didn't want to. He didn't want to be separated from Little Bun. In fact, at this moment, an intense viciousness arose in the depths of his heart, and he had the insane thought of forcefully taking Little Baozi away. Ningxi's aura suddenly became cold, and her cold eyes swept over everyone present calmly. Instinctively, she estimated everyone's strength. If she really wanted to, no one here could stop her from taking Xiaobao away except Lu Tingxiao. Perhaps sensing Ningxi's mood swings and the cold aura on her body, the Little Bun, who was originally sleeping peacefully in her arms, frowned uncomfortably. Ningxi suddenly came to a realization, and only then did she suppress the anger in her heart in annoyance. She patted Little Baozi's back to appease him. Rui, go and carry Xiaobao. Lu Chongshan couldn't help but get angry when he saw that the woman didn't move at all. Yang Rui nodded and was about to step forward to take Xiaobao from Ningxi's arms. At this time, Lu Tingxiao walked to the edge of Ningxi's bed first and motioned Ningxi to let him hold Xiaobao. Ningxi, let me hold him. Ningxi looked at Lu Tingxiao warily. Even if it was Lu Tingxiao, she was unwilling to give her little bun to him. No. Don't give it. Little treasure is mine. Looking at the girl's guarded look, Lu Tingxiao's eyes flashed with a trace of affection. His eyes wrapped around her like a warm tide, and his gentle tone inexplicably had the ability to calm people's hearts. Xiaoxi, be good. Trust me, okay? Ningxi stared at Lu Tingxiao, her eyes red. She didn't believe it. No one would believe it. Why? Why did you also want to take Xiaobao away? No, that's not right. How is this snatching? Xiaobao was originally theirs, not hers, not hers. Ningxi, what's wrong with you? What the hell are you doing? Ningxi used all her self-control to sober herself up. In the end, she carefully handed the little bun to Lu Tingxiao, but her eyes were glued to him. At the same time, her eyes were filled with grievance. Lu Tingxiao looked at the girl who was looking at him as if he was a traitor, and a helpless smile flashed across his face. Upon seeing this, Lu Chongshan nodded in satisfaction. Xing Wu, prepare the car. Miss Ning, please follow me. Xing Wu accepted the order and motioned for Ningxi to leave with him. Lu Tingxiao picked up the little bun with one arm, who was obviously uneasy because of the change of arms, and protected Ningxi behind him with the other hand. Then, she looked at her parents coldly and said in a calm voice, Dad, Mom, thank you for taking care of Xiaobao. The company isn't busy lately, and Jing Li will be back soon, so I won't trouble you anymore. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Chongshan and Yang Rui's expressions changed. Yang Rui looked anxious. Tingxiao, what are you doing? Xiaobao's body was just right. Where are you taking Xiaobao? Chapter 504. Lu Chongshan slammed his walking stick on the table angrily. You bastard. What do you mean by this? You want to take Xiaobao away? Don't you dare. Lu Tingxiao's eyes turned cold. Father, Xiaobao is your grandson, but he's also my son. Lu Chongshan was so angry that he blurted out, I'm still your father. I think you've been bewitched by this woman. If you dare to take Xiaobao away today, you'll have to step over my dead body. Lu Tingxiao's eyes turned cold. If you insist on threatening me with your life, I have nothing to say. But I must take Xiaobao away today. In an instant, the atmosphere between the father and son was extremely tense. Everyone was silent and did not dare to breathe too loudly. Yang Rui was completely on her husband's side. Tingxiao, even if you blame us for not taking good care of Xiaobao, this was an accident. We are Xiaobao's grandparents. Is there anyone in the world who is more devoted to Xiaobao than us? You'd rather trust a woman you've only known for a few days than trust your biological parents. This has nothing to do with her. Lu Chongshan could not tolerate his son's defense of that woman. He was so angry that his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He no longer cared that there were so many people present. He lost control and bellowed, Have you forgotten what happened 2 years ago? Have you forgotten how Xiaobao became like this? Isn't it enough to learn such a painful lesson once? How dare you trust a woman like her? You're. Yang Rui saw that Lu Chongshan was getting more and more agitated, so she quickly went over to support him. Tingxiao, please understand how your father and I feel. We're really scared. Lu Tingxiao narrowed his eyes. I understand how you feel. I swear on my life that this will not happen a second time. She's different. She's only loved Xiaobao ever since they met. You know how Xiaobao has changed since he met her. However, the thoughts of the old people were still too stubborn, especially when it came to the matter of the past. Therefore, after hearing Lu Tingxiao's words, they only wavered for a few seconds before returning to their original state. No matter what Lu Tingxiao said at that moment, they wouldn't listen to a single word. They just wouldn't allow Lu Tingxiao to take them away. Lu Tingxiao's expression grew darker and darker. Although he didn't have the heart to do it, he knew that it was better to get the pain over with than to prolong it. Therefore, he said the words that might hurt them. The most terrifying thing is not that Xiaobao is hurt by an outsider, but that he is hurt by someone close to him, and that he is destroyed in the name of love. You. Lu Chongshan's face stiffened and his body trembled. His son's words were like a boulder pressing down on his heart. Although he had always been doing this for Xiaobao's sake, ever since he had forcibly confined Xiaobao to the old house, he had only suffered injuries. Last night, he had almost, following Lu Tingxiao's words, the living room became so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. The situation was in a stalemate. At this moment, the person who was in the most awkward position was Ning Shi. She knew that with her around, there were many things that they couldn't talk about. Therefore, even though she really didn't want to leave Xiaobao, she had to consider whether she should leave first so that the family of three could have a good talk. Perhaps because everyone was arguing too loudly, Xiaobao, who was lying on Lu Tingxiao's shoulder, furrowed his brows. His eyelashes fluttered and he slowly opened his eyes. Ning Shi was standing behind Lu Tingxiao, so when Xiaobao opened his eyes, he saw her immediately. As the little fellow had just woken up, he looked extremely adorable with his sleepy eyes. He blinked his eyes gently and after seeing Ning Shi, his gaze never left her. Perhaps he thought that he had seen wrongly. The little fellow rubbed his eyes with his soft little hands. Then, without hesitation, he stretched out his short little arms in Ning Shi's direction. In the next second, a soft and slightly hoarse voice rang out in the quiet air. Hug. Chapter 505. In this living room that was filled with smoke and could explode at any moment, a childish voice that could melt hearts rang out without warning. It was like a sudden clap of thunder exploding in everyone's ears. Lu Chongshan's gloomy face instantly went blank. Yang Ruyi, who was about to open her mouth to persuade him, suddenly widened her eyes. Even the usually calm and composed Lu Tingxiao was stunned. He held his son in his arms and stood rooted to the ground, not daring to move. That voice just now rang out in his ears. If it wasn't for the lingering breath of the little fellow when he spoke, he would have thought that he was hallucinating. He couldn't remember how long it had been since he last heard that voice, but it was almost the same as the one in his memory. He thought that he would never hear this voice again in this lifetime, because everyone present was truly too shocked. For a time, there was actually no one who spoke. However, all of their burning gazes descended onto Little Bao, and their gazes were filled with hesitation and desire to speak. The one who was even more shocked than Xiaobao's grandparents and father was probably Ning Shi. She was standing right in front of Xiaobao, and not only did she hear it with her own ears, she also saw the moment Xiaobao opened his mouth with her own eyes. Xiaobao was completely oblivious to what he had done and how big of an impact he had caused. He only focused on maintaining his posture of asking for a hug. Seeing that Ning Shi was ignoring him, he pursed his lips and revealed a sad expression that looked like he was about to cry. Only then did the dazed Ning Shi snap out of her daze. She hurriedly rushed forward and carried Xiaobao from Lu Tingxiao's arms. Ning Shi's action was like a switch, and everyone else also recovered from their shock. Tingxiao, Xiaobao. Xiaobao just now, was Xiaobao talking just now? Was it Xiaobao? Ah! Yang Ruyi and Lu Chongshan asked one after another, so excited that even their voices were trembling. The doctors and servants around them also began to whisper to each other. Did you guys hear that just now? Little young master spoke. I heard it. Little young master said he was going to hug him. I thought I heard it wrong. Little young master hasn't spoken for 2 years. This is too amazing. What exactly happened just now? I don't know. He suddenly spoke. I'm stunned. After returning to Aunt Xiao's arms, Little Bun was finally satisfied. Even the noise around him could not affect him. He yawned delicately, then lay on Aunt Xiao's fragrant shoulder and fell asleep again with great peace of mind. He left the room full of people who were stunned by his unintentional words. That Miss Ning, did you see little Bao talking just now? Can you talk to Xiao Bao and let him say more? Yang Rui asked carefully. Lu Chongshan seemed to have completely forgotten who the person who had been glaring at him was. He echoed from the side, "That's right." Seeing that Yang Rui and Lu Chongshan were looking at her eagerly, Ningxi patted her back and coughed awkwardly. "But Xiao Bao is asleep." Yang Rui, Lu Chongshan, sleeping again? Wasn't he trying to make them anxious to death? But he couldn't wake up his precious grandson at this time. What could he do? Therefore, everyone's eyes fell on Lu Tingxiao. Lu Tingxiao looked at his son with a complicated expression, gently touched his son's little head with his big warm palm, and said softly, "Xiao Bao did speak just now. Don't worry, let's wait until he wakes up." Chapter 506. No hurry. They had been waiting for 2 years. They thought it was impossible for Xiao Bao to talk to them again. How could they not be anxious? But now they had no choice but to wait. Xing Wu, whose task was interrupted because of Baozi, finally found a chance to speak. "Master, should we prepare a car?" As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Chongshan immediately shot him a displeased look. "Prepare a car. Go to the kitchen to prepare dinner." With that, he coughed and turned to Ningxi awkwardly. "Miss Ning, stay for dinner." How could he be willing to let this woman stay? But his precious grandson didn't speak to his grandparents or his father or the doctor, but to this woman. "Yes, stay for dinner." "No, stay for a few more days." "Look, Xiao Bao can't leave you now, right?" Yang Rui also said. Faced with the sudden change of attitude, Ningxi subconsciously looked at Lu Tingxiao. Lu Tingxiao frowned and didn't give in. This time, he would definitely take Xiao Bao away. After all, Xiao Bao was his son. Lu Chongshan knew what Lu Tingxiao was thinking. He said seriously, "Even if you want to take Xiao Bao away, you should at least wait until he recovers. Then we can let you take him away. Are you trying to make us anxious to death by taking Xiao Bao away?" Hearing this, the stubborn Lu Chongshan, actually compromised. A gleam of surprise flashed across Lu Tingxiao's eyes. Then he looked at Ningxi and said, "Let's go back to the room and wait for Xiao Bao to wake up." Xiao Bao had just spoken. If he took Xiao Bao away now, Lu Chongshan would really break off the relationship between him and his son. In this case, Ningxi understood. She nodded and went back to the room with Baozi in her arms. As soon as Ningxi entered the room with Baozi, Yang Rui and Lu Chongshan couldn't control their emotions anymore. Chongshan, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Our Xiao Bao spoke. Xiao Bao really spoke. I thought I wouldn't be able to live until the day I die." Yang Rui burst into tears. "Nonsense. Didn't Xiao Bao speak? I told him that with the blessing of our ancestors, Xiao Bao would definitely recover." Looking at his parents' excited faces, Lu Tingxiao wanted to say something but stopped himself. In the end, he didn't pour cold water on them. Xiao Bao had only said one word, and he had said it unconsciously. Even so, it was already a huge breakthrough. In the room, Ningxi kissed little Bun's soft cheeks. She was so happy that she was about to go to heaven. "Raw. My steamed bun has spoken. My steamed bun wants me to hug tilde. My steamed bun's voice is so cute, my heart melt." How could even her voice be so cute? At this moment, everyone was waiting anxiously and nervously. Fortunately, little Bun had slept for a day and a night and was already full. After waking up just now, he only slept for a while and quickly woke up. When Ningxi saw little Bun open his eyes, her face was immediately filled with surprise. At the same time, she was a little nervous, afraid that she would startle him. She said softly, Baby, you're awake? Little Baozi blinked, looked at Ningxi for a while, and blinked again. Finally, she was sure that the person in front of her was Aunt Xiaoxi, and her big black grape-like eyes suddenly sparkled like stars. Chapter 507. Xiao Baozi rubbed himself in Ningxi's arms and looked at her without blinking, as if he was afraid that she would disappear if he blinked. Seeing this, Ningxi felt distressed and kissed the little bun on both cheeks. Aunt Xiaoxi, it's true. It's not a dream. Papa brought Aunt Xiaoxi to see you. It's because you're sick. Being kissed, Xiao Baozi's cheeks were flushed and all the uneasiness in his heart was dispelled. He pursed his lips shyly and kissed Ningxi back. Ningxi covered her face and felt so happy that she would feel like this even if she won an Oscar. Looking at Xiao Baozi's eyes that seemed to be able to speak, Ningxi wanted to spend more time with him, but she knew that there were still many people waiting anxiously outside, so she said, "Baby, are you hungry? I'll take you to eat something, okay?" Xiao Baozi nodded obediently. "Wait a minute. I'll help you get dressed." Ningxi walked to the wardrobe with Xiao Baozi in her arms and began to choose clothes for him. "Do you want to wear that?" Xiao Baozi glanced at the wardrobe and chose a set of cartoon sweaters that Ningxi had bought for him. "Well, just as I thought." After helping Xiao Baozi get dressed, Ningxi walked out with Xiao Baozi in her arms. As soon as they went out, they were stared at by everyone. The little fellow, who was lying on the bed and dying last night, had now changed into bright-colored clothes and was held in Ningxi's arms. His eyes were also a lot more lively, as if he had become a different person. The servants couldn't help thinking, sure enough, a child with a mother is like a treasure. Yang Rui's eyes turned red when she saw her grandson wake up, handsome and lovable. Xiao Bao is awake. Come on, come and eat. You must be hungry after not eating for so long. Lu Chongshan also said, don't just stand there. Sit down and eat. At the dinner table, Lu Chongshan sat at the head of the table and Lu Tingxiao sat on his left. Lu Chongshan was going to let Xiao Bao sit on his other side, but the little boy turned his head and immediately hugged Ningxi's neck. In the end, Lu Tingxiao pulled out the seat next to him and let Ningxi sit next to him. Yang Ruyi and Qin Mufeng sat opposite them. At the dining table, except for Ningxi who was focused on feeding Xiao Bao, everyone else had their own thoughts. Of course, the thing that everyone was most concerned about was whether little Bao was really willing to speak. In the end, Lu Chongshan and Yang Ruyi could no longer hold themselves back. Xiao Bao, are you still feeling unwell? Yang Ruyi asked lovingly. Xiao Bao was focused on being fed porridge by Ningxi and did not answer. Yang Ruyi naturally did not mind. She continued probing with concern, Xiao Bao, is the porridge bad? You're sick, so you can't eat oily food. Grandma will cook something delicious for you later, okay? You're not feeling well, so Grandpa has helped you apply for leave. You don't have to go to school these few days. Yang Ruyi and Lu Chongshan talked to Xiao Bao for a long time. However, Xiao Bao seemed to be a little slow in responding to the questions from the outside world. He only gave very indifferent responses, as if he didn't hear them at all. It was as if he had returned to the past overnight. This made Yang Ruyi anxious. She had finally opened her mouth to say a word, but she was not sure if he was really willing to speak. Why did he return to the past? Chapter 508. Tingxiao, what's wrong with Xiao Bao? Why does he look dull? Yang Ruyi said anxiously. She had been looking forward to teasing Xiao Bao, but he didn't say a word and didn't even respond. How could she not be anxious? Lu Chongshan said unhappily, What dullness. Xiaobao has just recovered from a serious illness, so it's normal for him to be slow. In fact, Lu Chongshan was also worried. He was worried that Xiaobao's brain might have a problem after having a fever for so long. Qin Mufeng frowned. He was also worried that Xiaobao's condition was not right. Ningxi had been playing with Xiaobao for a while in the room, so she knew clearly that there was nothing wrong with Xiaobao. However, in front of Lu Chongshan and Yang Rui, she was in an awkward position. If she said a wrong word, she would bring trouble to herself, so she didn't say anything. Therefore, she remained invisible and focused on feeding Xiaobao. Although Lu Tingxiao didn't know anything, he looked calm and not anxious at all. He glanced at his son who was obediently eating porridge in Ningxi's arms, and then said casually, "Xiaobao, there's something dirty in your Aunt Xiao's hair." Xiaobao, who was eating porridge, immediately looked up, stared at Aunt Xiao's hair, and searched with his soft little hands. After searching for a long time, he still couldn't find it, so he looked at Papa anxiously, with his big eyes full of anxiety. "Where is it?" Lu Tingxiao picked up a piece of fish for Ningxi and said slowly, "I was wrong." "Xiaobao. Ningxi. This devil is so cunning. Lu Chongshan and Yang Rui. How could you lie to a child like this?" Qin Mufeng, however, after being reminded by Lu Tingxiao, they finally understood that even if Xiaobao was sick and weak, his brain and reaction were completely fine. He was very clever. However, he only reacted to things that he cared about. Lu Chongshan and Yang Rui looked at each other with a bad expression. Sure enough, they forced Xiaobao to stay with them and restricted him from seeing Ningxi, which made Xiaobao feel repulsed by them. Seeing the tense atmosphere at the dining table, Qin Mufeng felt that it was time for him to play a role as a psychologist. Thus, Qin Mufeng coughed lightly, took out a pen and paper, and wrote a word on it. Then, he placed it in front of Xiaobao and coaxed him gently, "Xiaobao, do you know how to pronounce this word?" Qin Mufeng wrote the word "she" on the paper. She as in Ningxi. To think that he would actually tempt Xiaobao to talk like that, Lu Chongshan and Yang Rui had a look of admiration on their faces. He was indeed a professional psychologist. Lu Tingxiao glanced at the word, tilted his head, and didn't say anything. Xiaobao stared at the word. Everyone stared at Xiaobao. Under the nervous gazes of everyone at the table, Xiaobao first looked at Qin Mufeng with a very subtle expression, then immediately picked up the pen and wrote on the paper, "she." Then, it threw away the pen and raised its head to look at Ningxi, indicating that it wanted to continue feeding. Puff. Ningxi, who had been silent all night, couldn't help but burst into laughter. "My darling little treasure is too naughty. But what if she became cuter?" Qin Mufeng wanted to smash his head against the ground. His wisdom in this lifetime was ruined by this brat's hands. Chapter 509. Although Qin Mufeng had been tricked by Lil Bun, Lu Chongshan and Yang Rui looked much better. Their worries about Lil Bao's brain had all disappeared. They knew that Lil Bao was smart. The way the little fellow looked at Qin Mufeng just now was obviously intentional. The more they looked at him, the more he looked like Tingxiao when he was young. Although he didn't like to talk, he was so bored. The two elders looked at Xiaobao with eyes full of love and pride. Qin Mufeng could only silently vomit blood at the side. Forget it, forget it. His sacrifice had finally made a contribution. Didn't it set off the little ancestor's intelligence? In the end, the meal was finished in a harmonious atmosphere. However, everyone felt a little regretful because no matter how they probed, Lil Bao didn't say a word. After dinner, Ningxi knew that they definitely had something to discuss, so she brought Lil Bao back to her room. "What do we do now? Our Lil Bao still doesn't want to talk." Yang Rui sighed. Lu Chongshan's expression was solemn. In order to save face, Qin Mufeng explained in his professional way, "Actually, it's easy to understand. Lil Bao doesn't want to talk because there's always a shadow in his heart. Subconsciously, he's always in a state of self-protection and vigilance. However, when he was in a completely relaxed state and in front of someone he could completely trust, he would naturally speak after all the conditions were met. He didn't even need any guidance. This is in line with the direction of my previous judgment. So you're saying that to make Lil Bao speak, we still have to rely on that. Lu Chongshan coughed lightly and finally stopped calling her that woman. We still have to rely on Ningxi. Qin Mufeng nodded. You can understand it that way. Ningxi is the key factor. You could even say that she's the decisive factor. Actually, Qin Mufeng had said similar things countless times, but it was a pity that Lu Chongshan was too stubborn and wouldn't listen. Lu Chongshan and Yang Ruyi couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Yang Ruyi sighed and comforted herself. So many doctors have looked at him and said that his condition isn't optimistic. They said that with Lil Bao's condition, there's a high chance that he won't be able to speak for the rest of his life. At least this proves that it's entirely possible to make Lil Bao speak. Lu Chongshan nodded. Yes, this is a good thing. Lu Chongshan looked at his eldest son and said, "Come with me." In the study. Lu Chongshan was silent for a while, as if he was making an important decision. After a while, he finally said, "Take Xiaobao with you." Lu Tingxiao wasn't surprised by Lu Chongshan's decision. However, it was better than he had expected that his father would change his mind. He didn't expect Xiaobao to suddenly speak up. It's true that I didn't take good care of Xiaobao while he was with me. This is my responsibility. However, even if I hand Xiaobao over to you now, it doesn't mean that I'm completely at ease. If anything happens to Xiaobao while he's at your place, I'll still bring Xiaobao back immediately. At that time, you're not allowed to object. Do you agree? Lu Chongshan said with a serious expression. Lu Tingxiao nodded. Sure. Lu Chongshan turned his face away and waved his hand impatiently, as if afraid that he would regret it. Go. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.